Hello, and welcome to 3C Money Matters, a podcast for clients, colleagues, and community. I'm Alice Zalman from the 3C Group of Baird, and as always, alongside me today as team host is Dan Matthews. Dan, how are you this morning?
I'm great, and I love that the sun's shining and it's warm outside.
Agreed. Spring is definitely on its way. Well, we appreciate all of you joining us, whether you're listening or watching. We're incredibly excited and fortunate today to have two guests on from Baird Trust. Founded in 1984, Baird Trust provides trust administration, estate settlement, investment portfolio management services for individuals, families, and institutional clients, and is truly a tremendous resource for our clients and for us as Baird advisors. So we're very fortunate again to have Mark Nickel, the president and chief investment officer of Baird Trust, with us, along with Andy Means, managing director and lead portfolio manager for the Baird Trust large cap equity strategy and equity income strategy. So gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Good morning.
Looks like it's also maybe a pretty beautiful day down there in Louisville.
It's not bad. Low 70s. Perfect.
Well, we are fortunate to have you both on with us. Look forward to chatting a bit. But as our listeners will know, the first question we ask every guest on 3C Money Matters to help get to know them a bit and hopefully have a little bit of fun along the way is, what is your favorite movie and why? So Mark, I'll start with you. Tell us, what's your favorite movie and why?
Yeah, so Fellowship of the Ring, which is part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, it is, I can have it on at all times and it never gets old. Why do I love it? There are just some themes that really resonate with me. The friendship in relationships. So you got the fellowship there, and good versus evil. That's a theme that never gets old. But then there's also some unexpected heroes that come out of the movie that I think you should. You never know where greatness might come from. And then lastly, some of the visuals and some of the soundtrack just take me to another place. And so when I maybe need to pick me up, I can watch a couple of those scenes and I'm back to where I want to be.
Do you have a favorite character?
Gandalf is my favorite character. A grumpy old man who turns into some really just powerful figure and has a lot of wisdom. So I love that.
Who is the Gandalf of the Baird Trust Department?
Well, I think you actually have him on this.
I was wondering if you would say that.
You know, I was just wondering about that because I may be just the oldest person there. I never thought of myself as grumpy, but I reckon I am at this point.
Well, definitely a lot of wisdom. So,
Andy, what about you? What's your favorite movie and why?
So I'm not a frequent moviegoer. So my favorite movie is from 30 years ago, actually, and it's called Phenomenon. And it was a John Travolta movie. And it was about just your average Joe. You know, he was a car mechanic and developed all of a sudden these superhuman intelligence powers, including telekinetic powers where he could move objects with his mind, but also a genius and all of the gifts and all of the problems that creates in his life. And that it also it has some twists and turns that are stunning, but it's also a love story, which I am very much a sucker for, and just leaves you with a very warm feeling in the end.
I love that movie too.
I remember seeing it when it came out in theaters, and with both of the movies you all referenced, it makes me think, you know, there are certain times in life or in business where you kind of wish all of a sudden you develop superpowers and intelligence, or sometimes when you wish you had a ring that would make it become invisible. In any case, we appreciate you all sharing, but we'd like to help our listeners learn a little bit more about what Baird Trust does to help clients and as us as advisors. So, Mark, if I could ask you, and I know this is probably not easy to briefly summarize, but could you give us an idea, an overview of Baird Trust, what the trust company does, how Baird Trust is available to generally help clients and us as advisors?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and Alice, in your intro, you touched on a couple things. We've been around since 1984, so this isn't our first rodeo, and we do four things that I frame it up as a four-legged stool. So we can serve as trustee, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. We can settle estates, or we can serve as a client's executor. We have a team then that also focuses on philanthropy, so it's our charitable solutions team. So many of our families have enough going to the kids, and I have these nonprofits, these community organizations that I'm really passionate about. How can we help them? And then we have investment management, and you're going to hear from Andy in a bit. So those four legs of the stool, we can mix and match and bring those capabilities to your clients as needed. Sometimes we do all four things for a family. Sometimes it may just be one or two things. But the thing I would like to just address your audience is really that role of a trustee or even as an executor in a will. Many families, when they're updating their estate plan, and you're going to have a will and you got to name an executor, and if they are utilizing trusts, you got to name a trustee. And it's very easy to say, hey, I trust my brother or my sister is really responsible and she could do that for me if I'm gone. And then they move on. And they're talking about the kids are going to get this or, we're going to distribute that. And I really want to just come back to, for your audience, is naming an individual the right thing as executor or as your trustee? And I would ask them to think about, does that individual that you're naming, do they have, one, the time to do the work? Are they capable of doing the work? Because it is a lot of work. It's messy and it requires ongoing commitment. 3, are they going to be around when you're not around? So a lot of times people name somebody in their same age cohort. And if you think about it, if I'm gone, are they gone? Or they might age out. Or then lastly, you put an individual in the midst of a family who's just lost a loved one, and maybe there's some sibling challenges, and maybe there's some family dynamics, especially once mom and dad are out of the picture, you're putting the person in a position to not succeed. So Baird Trust can serve as a corporate trustee or as a corporate executor, and we're going to be around a while. We deal with family dynamics all the time, and we've got 42 years of experience to draw upon. So that would be just one thing as we talk about your clients and what does Baird Trust do and how can we help. That is a very important conversation to have and to think through.
Yep, absolutely. And part of the very important part of the equation and what our team wants to be helping clients with, which is, of course, is growing and accumulating wealth over your lifetime, but also what do you want to happen to your assets after you're gone? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? And certainly the trust company is, a tremendous resource available to us at Baird to help clients in that capacity. Another very important component of what you all do and that our team utilizes heavily is portfolio and investment management. So again, we're very fortunate to have Andy Means on with us today. Andy, you've been in the investment business for over 40 years, I believe. Many of those years spent leading portfolio management for the Baird Trust, large cap equity and equity income strategy. Obviously, that's a lot of market cycles to go through, both challenging and good. Given your extensive experience, can you tell our listeners about your process and Baird Trust's philosophy and process for managing portfolios?
Yeah, happy to. So our entire investment operation has been built upon the wisdom, teachings, and investment principles that have long been espoused by Warren Buffett and his business partner, Charlie Munger. And in the beginning, Buffett's, one of his famous quotes is that there are 2 rules of investing. Rule number 1 is don't lose money, and rule number 2 is don't forget rule number 1. So that's our starting point, is preservation of our clients' wealth. And that is non-negotiable, and we do a number of things to try to accomplish that goal. And once we've accomplished that goal, then you move on to what's the rate of return that we can responsibly generate on our clients' money. So obviously the beginning point is to understand what each client's investment objectives and risk tolerance are. And once that's established, then we'll set an asset allocation for the client, what mix of bonds and stocks would accomplish their goals. And in the bond area, we don't take risk in bonds. We want to generate a nice stream of income from the bond portfolio, but we also want the bond portfolio to be an anchor, to be a reliable and steady return part of a portfolio. Then you move on to stocks. The way that we manage money in stocks is a little bit different than many folks. We think the world nowadays is much too short-term oriented in dealing with stocks, and you see a lot of activity, buying and selling and repositioning and making all these moves based on what somebody thinks is about to happen. And we think the world is unpredictable, quite frankly. And so underlying our equity strategy is the reality that if you see concentrations of wealth anywhere in this country, they almost invariably are the result of the long-term ownership of a successful business, whether it's on a grand scale and Bill Gates and Microsoft, Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, the Walton family and Walmart, or in every community in the country where an individual or a family has owned a successful business and it has created wealth over time. So what we try to do is replicate that phenomenon in a more diversified fashion. So on the equity side, we just try to put together a portfolio of terrific businesses that are run by really smart people, and then own them for years and years and let those businesses compound our clients' wealth responsibly for years into the future. So you've got the equity portion that's leading for the compounding of growth for the client's assets. You've got the bond portfolio creating a stream of income and stability for the portfolio. But in all things we do, very high quality and reliable securities that you can count on both in good times and in bad through all those different cycles. That's what we try to create.
Andy, we understand, as you just alluded to, that Baird Trust takes a very long-term business owner type approach to managing investments and portfolios. But as always, in the current state of the world, there are things that are potentially very concerning to our clients in the short term as they read headlines about the situation in Iran and a number of other things. And that's an inevitable and uncomfortable part of the long-term investment process, but a normal part of it. However, could I ask you, because I'm sure that you hear some of these same questions and concerns from other Baird advisors and clients as well, but given some of these larger headlines and things going on in the world and current state of markets, can you tell us what's top of mind for you and Baird Trust as you look out over the next 3, 6, 9 months and beyond as you're making portfolio decisions?
Yeah. So as I said, we think many aspects of the world are unpredictable. And so the most important thing with portfolio management is to make sure that portfolios are always prepared for the range of possible outcomes that may lie ahead. Some of those outcomes may be good. Some of those outcomes may be less good or even, very challenging at some point in the future. You want to always have your portfolio prepared for the entire range of outcomes because you never quite know what lies ahead. And we think our portfolios are. So as far as what is top of mind today, clearly the geopolitical events, the war in Ukraine and Russia, and then also, what's going on in the Middle East is obviously top of mind today, and the effects that has had in the short term. Looking forward, nobody really knows quite how this is going to play out and how high oil prices may go, what the effects on the world economy may be, so forth and so on. But that's clearly top of mind today, and trying to understand what those possible range of outcomes are. Again, making sure that your portfolio can withstand whatever happens. The other top of mind subject, and I would say will be for the next several years, is artificial intelligence, the rollout of AI capabilities across the entire economy. There will be companies and industries that benefit substantially from what AI may offer, and there will also be companies and industries that are disrupted by AI, just the same way that the internet enabled some companies to do incredible things, but it also put some companies out of business if they couldn't adapt to the changes that the internet brought about. That lies ahead with AI, we think, over the next several years. So top of mind for us in our security selection is trying to understand what impacts AI might have on businesses as we go forward, and trying to concentrate our portfolios on businesses that will benefit from AI, and trying to avoid those businesses that AI actually may be a disruptive force to them. And that's not something that we have the answers to today, because even the people that are rolling AI out don't understand what the biggest use cases are going to be. Those will just develop over time. It's also likely that we'll see new businesses and new industries develop due to the emergence of AI that don't even exist today. And so we'll be on the lookout for those and responsibly adding those to our portfolios over time once they become substantial businesses in their own right. So those are probably the two biggest things to think about right now. And we spend all our time doing just that.
Andy, I had a question about that related to AI. Are there any sectors that you feel like have been influenced that you own now in the large cap equity portfolio that are specifically related to anticipation of that area doing well in AI in the next few years?
As far as sectors, we don't think as much in that regard as we do about individual businesses. And I will say that the vast majority of the businesses that we own, and we own 27 businesses in the large cap equity today, the vast majority of them are already utilizing AI and to the benefit of the corporation. So again, it's a daily pursuit of trying to ascertain which businesses are benefiting and which are not. Clearly, one of the industries that seems to be, that investors are suspicious that AI may really hurt their businesses is the software industry and technology. And a lot of those stocks have declined substantially on fears of what how it may disrupt their business models. So we really look at the investing process more business by business. And I'll just say the businesses we own, and I can safely say all the businesses we'll own in the future, and even the ones that we're interested in looking at, are businesses that we think will benefit from AI and not be disrupted by AI. It's just when you think about what the internet to some companies and some industries, and the fact that AI may have the same impact, it's just so important that you understand fully what AI means to each business you own.
Yeah. And I think, Andy, it strikes me what you're talking about, because again, as human beings, we can be emotional beings and get very caught up in what could go wrong with the current state of the world or with markets. But looking longer term at AI specifically and its impact on potential businesses and industries, that's an example of, what could go right over time, and trying to own that and have exposure to that and participate in that over the long term. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, largely what could really go right is that it could make our economy overall and individual businesses and individual employees much more productive. And higher productivity is just magic for an economy, for the stock market. If those things all go right, then it'll be a very exciting time to be an investor in the years to come.
Mark, if I could ask you'd alluded earlier in talking about what Baird Trust ultimately does to kind of that four-legged stool of areas of expertise. But in your experience, is there one particular family situation or client situation, obviously without breaching any kind of confidentiality, a story you could tell us that stands out in your mind about how Baird Trust was able to provide a successful long-term outcome for a client or their family?
Absolutely. So there is a family that comes to mind who I've been working with for nearly 20 years. And I'm now working with Generation 4. So started with Generation 1, and Generation 1, we primarily managed money for them. And then as their needs progressed, there was some estate planning, and the estate planning was going to fund some trusts for both their kids and grandkids. This family also was highly philanthropic. And so a good portion of their estate plan was going to fund a charitable trust in the mom's behalf and a charitable trust in the dad's behalf. Both have now passed. And so here we were managing money for them very successfully. We now went at their passing, we served as executor, so the second leg of the stool. And then we funded trust where we're serving as trustee for the kids and the grandkids. And then also we're handling the philanthropic side. So these charitable trusts or our charitable solutions team. So this is a family where all four legs of the stool at some part along the path, we've been able to provide those services. And now there's great grandkids who trusts are now being funded and gifts are being made. And it is two things. It's extremely powerful to be able to tell the grandkids, I knew your grandfather, and he liked this, or he loved that, or he had this sparkle in his eye when we would meet. And that connectivity is so important, and it's really powerful. The second thing that is so powerful is now once a year, the family comes together to say, hey, we've got a lot of money we got to give away. And we know what grandma and we know what grandpa's goals and objectives were, but it wasn't black and white. And so every year the family comes together and says, where are we going to make these donations to these charities to change nonprofits and to benefit our community? And to see that sort of the plan through funding, and now it's actually going out to the community to be a small part of that, to see the difference it makes is tremendously rewarding. And also to know that this was their vision that we're now carrying out. And there's a lot of, it's a very admirable thing that we're doing on their behalf. It's very, we're honoring their wishes. And I can sleep well at night knowing that this is the kind of work that we're doing on behalf of our family. So that's just a wonderful family story. We're all four generations now we're touching, and all four legs of the stool have played a part to help this family.
Incredibly powerful story. Thank you, Mark, for sharing. Andy, Mark, thank you both for joining us this morning. We appreciate you. We appreciate all of our colleagues at Baird Trust and all they help us do for our clients. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for 3C Money Matters. We'll catch you next time.
Baird Trust Company, a Kentucky state-chartered trust company, is owned by Baird Financial Corporation. It is affiliated with Robert W. Baird & Company Incorporated, an SEC-registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, and other operating businesses owned by Baird Financial Corporation. This broadcast contains the current opinions of the host and are subject to change. The broadcast is provided for informational purposes only, is not a complete analysis of every material fact regarding any company, industry, or security, and should not be considered investment advice or recommendations. Investors should obtain professional advice before making investment decisions. The information has been obtained from sources considered reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and diversification does not ensure a profit or protect against loss. All investments carry some level of risk, including loss of principal. Baird is not a legal or tax services provider, and you are strongly encouraged to seek the advice of the appropriate professional advisors before taking any action. Investors should consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of a fund carefully before investing. This and other information is found in the prospectus and summary prospectus. For a prospectus, please contact your financial professional and read it carefully before investing. This broadcast may not be reproduced without express permission of Robert W. Baird & Company Incorporated, member SIPC.